Okay, it's on if you want to open.
All right, we're gonna open the meeting at 7:04, and this is the OPM Designer Selection Committee for the police station and renovations to Town Hall. It's a Friday morning, June 9th, and today we have received 7 qualifications, submittals from the advertisement that we put out, and the RFQ that we put out. So 7 is a good number, better than 3.
Or 2 or 1.
Or 2 or 1 or none.
There's 3.
I think some names on the list are known entities, which is good. I think on the list there are also, regardless,
Sure.
I could say that maybe 3 of these are probably architectural firms that we're probably just looking to get a sense of the project. And there certainly was probably a side thing that some of the couple names are bigger firms, but just this isn't what they do at this size. So to review, we asked for qualifications. We didn't ask for proposal. This isn't coming down to dollars. This is who is the best qualified. So before we get started, if anybody has any individual who has any financial or other connections to any firm that has submitted, should say so about that firm. Not that you know them, but you actually are doing business with them, or you're consulting for them, or anything like that. So I'm pretty sure that's not it, but just wanted to make sure. And then we set up the criteria. We set up the points. We did it in a logical thought process of what is more important. But when you review these, it really comes down to what firm shows the most experience, the most quality of work, the most knowledge of the public sector. They have the professional registrations and they have the capacity. But the bottom line is, for everything that's submitted, you're scoring the firm that you believe has the best experience that aligns with the projects that we have. Does that make sense? And I guess the other way to say that is if somehow in reading through all these, this is like the first time, obviously, for us as this committee to go through this process. It probably hasn't been done in this town in I don't know how long. If for some reason that the scoring and the thoughts of how the matrix is laid out, you can bring that up for discussion on Monday when we meet, that you chose to weight this a little differently just for your understanding. I think it's gonna come out in the wash when we add up the numbers, but I don't wanna say, I just wanna say we need to look at this with fresh eyes and understanding of who we're picking, so that, if we've done this, we do this once a year, this would be down pat. That's what I'm trying to say. So if something comes up, raise your hand and say I had a little different thought, or I saw this a little different way. That's what I'd like to hear on Monday. Hopefully you go through the proposals quickly, get a sense of them. You then read through the proposals in detail, and then you start lining proposals up, and hopefully it's a matter of flipping tabs where you could actually read 2 at a time to sort of balance them out. That was the intent of how we laid out the criteria. Martha, have you flipped through all these?
I have not.
So one of the things, the first thing we'll do on Monday is to say, did anybody find anything in any one of the proposals that they did not meet the criteria? And it's not because they didn't have a pretty picture on the front cover, but it's, we asked for someone with 5 years of experience and they say we had 1. So let's flag that. That's the first thing to discuss. Secondly, I think we'll have just a general discussion about what, is this what you expected? Is this something wildly different? Once we get a sense of that, then 4 firms. We'll then make a decision whether it's 3 or 4 firms for interviews, and then with that, I'll appear before the Board of Selectmen and tell them that we've gotten 7, we've reviewed them, we've got the review all documented, and we're recommending these 3 firms be notified as soon as possible that, that there are interviews set up for Friday the 23rd. Did we set a time for Friday?
No, we didn't. That was open.
Okay, so let's just do that now. I'm taking Friday off just to do this.
Good man.
So let's make it quick and have it be a nice day and get to the beach.
Hey,
See how committed they are. 4 a.m.
Start at 4.
No.
See, on your left hand, up this side, right there. I'll have it covered, one of those.
They are designers. Contractors we can get here for. These are designers.
Having some suggestions.
Oh, yeah, they're all out of bed, not that little.
They may not have gone to bed.
Yeah, so,
8 o'clock would be great, but
well, if we have 3,
we could do it.
and you have a suggestion, how would you?
Well, if you're gonna do 4, I would start at 8:30, so we're done by 1 o'clock. That would gives us till 12:30, gives us a half hour to kind of settle on things or whatever that is. And you give them 45 minutes, and on the hour, or at an hour, we start the next one. That gives us 10 or 15 minutes after each interview. Because some of them will run over because you get into a nice engaged conversation, and some you can't get them out of here fast enough, because they just don't do much. So I always find an hour. We don't need to know too much about the firm, although we don't know them like we do, like in our world.
Right.
But we don't want them to spend a whole lot of time giving us the show about who they are. Tell us what you're gonna do for us.
Right.
And that keeps them focused, but only having 45 minutes. I don't know what you run into and the way you do things.
Well, most of ours is done by decamp for us. so-
Before ahead of it,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're just the user agents.
But on the architect side, it takes a little longer if you're doing a presentation.
Yeah.
DCAM, they've done this enough, they do this regularly, they come in and it's a simple question, does anybody have anyone to be disqualified? Does anybody have anybody that they wanna put
Right.
in, and then they say, I want so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so.
Yeah.
They do it enough that they understand, they know the firms, they know, they've already married the firms to the type of projects, they've married the firms, the people that have done the marketing, to them.
Are you and John familiar with, I assume some of them are like,
I just worked with Daedalus on the south of the
South.
station, yeah, on the contractor side.
yeah.
I just know the names, I don't know anybody else personally.
I've met the people from left field, I've met and know Richard Marks from Daedalus, who's the principal there. I've heard like of P3 and Architectural Consulting Group, I've never worked with them.
Yeah, no, this,
So I think we're kind of in the dark for all of them,
oh,
except for
okay,
Daedalus.
no,
Yeah, and I'm, but, you know,
I was hoping that you'd shine a bright light.
Yeah.
I think he's pushing beacon, I'm just saying. That's subliminal messages here.
Actually, I did do a quick look at all of them, and they would probably, not make it.
so, I mean, I've used Daedalus in the past for estimating on projects, but never for an OPM. Usually the OPM is selecting me in my past life, or my architectural life. So, looking and evaluating OPMs, you know, this is actually my first time to get a stack of 7 of them.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've interviewed and run the process for selecting contractors, but never for an OPM.
LPM.
OPM is selecting.
And I've been in that part as an OPM.
Right.
So, yeah, I competed, but I usually don't see these folks on the public side, because I mostly do private working at this
okay.
state. Only reason I know Daedalus is because they were in Salisbury,
Yeah.
and Castanda's done a lot of projects with them, so I've got to weigh the taintness of it, so I look at it with an open mind. Yeah.
Fresh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, good.
So,
They do spec writing too, don't they? Doesn't
Yeah,
Richard
they-
Marks, yeah, I've
yes.
worked with him on that.
so they have multidisciplines within their office, and Dore and Whittier do OPM, but they're also architects. So maybe they want to do the architecture side.
Yeah,
Why didn't-
it's like Stantec, also
Yes.
does OPM services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the downturn, there was a fair amount of firms that got just bigger by combining. STV is architects, they have a huge transit engineering section.
Yeah.
And they also do project management.
Well, DPM brought that piece in for him, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And I thought they would bid on this, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And, John Sassabone called me, from Design Technique, and he said, I couldn't manage, I got it, so I'm not gonna put him, so that was great, and that was the same thing.
You recognize that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, even if I got awarded it, he says, I don't think I could handle it. You know, so I said, well, it's better than I'll put the effort in, and same with Compass, Tim Bonfati said, we're booked, I couldn't take it on.
Good.
So at least they didn't go through
No,
that, but
absolutely.
those would have been two
Yeah.
good companies that I know,
Yeah.
that at least would have had some history with.
We wanted into the process.
Yeah, and Compass is doing Mills's.
So the other couple things, we need to walk through this evaluation sheet. I think what we don't have, Martha, is we don't have, do we have a summary scorecard? How's this? Walk through this again.
There is no summary, so these are just individual for each.
Would it be helpful if we just went through and put numbered them 1 through 7, and then, I guess, the names at the top? So, in the end, we'd like a record of, everyone needs to fill out every sheet for everyone, so we have a decent record in the file. We must keep a file. The better the file's kept, the better the questions will be answered and quickly dismissed. So, take the time to fill this out, fill out the points. There's a total score. I guess the first thing we do, Martha, is we make a chart so that you could run a scoring summary.
Yeah.
We just plug it in really quickly, and that's the first thing we do before the meeting, so that we have that sort of weight, and then we can discuss. I think that's the important thing, to keep this above board, is we all do it separately, we calculate the numbers, then we can discuss. I don't think there's a problem with anybody that wants to change a number, or if you had two that were closely tied because you had issues you couldn't quite read and you wanted someone else's opinion. That's all above board to do that. And we'll see, I don't know, someone may get like 100, one may get a 1, I just don't know. And since we set this up and we hadn't vetted it, 5 times, we may find a little bit of a hole or a gap, and we'll just have to deal with it. So I wouldn't be surprised.
And that may make the difference between 3 and 4 interviewees, too, because they're that close, so we can't separate them, but,
Right.
and that's usually what happens.
So then, I think what we may have said, I wasn't 100% sure, but it's basically the same scoring sheet of criteria in terms of the we didn't and don't have an exact difference. And so I think in terms of the interview, if everyone had this sort of scoring matrix, and as you listen to the interview, we need to come up with some way to, again, to score the interviews.
Right.
So if we use this in front of us, you take a moment before the interview date to read this, and sort of have this little structure in your head, then you can assign the points. I mean, there's 4 of them, and usually the way it works is the first one goes, and you come up with a total of 10, and then the second one goes, and the first one moves up to a 12, and the next one goes to an 8, and then the next one goes, and you have double balances. The order of the interview, I would think that we would do 4 goes first and 1 goes last. That way, the one that we think is the best can get weighed against the other 3. It's been unfortunate interviews where you've got a great interview, great presentation, and you're just teaching them everything about the project on the first pass, and they're not listening to you, and they're not looking at you, they're just understanding where the hell their site is and where's north, and they're taking it all in, and then you leave and they can't even remember your name, and the next guy comes in and they don't have to go through all that, and they start to focus on them. So, it just depends on how interviews go. The last
you didn't think to ask, the first couple come out in those interviews. So by the time you get to the last one, you've asked those extra questions you didn't, that wouldn't
Oh,
develop.
you get the polished questions.
Yeah.
Because first time you have a question, it comes out good afterwards, next time it's a little better, and by the fourth time, you got your question right where you want it. So,
Not that we can't go back and ask questions.
right. Then, so on Monday, when we come up with a list of 4, and John, I think we said that you were gonna call the references.
Yep.
And it would be, you have to call the references on Monday and Tuesday. And I either need to have you at the, BOS meeting or hear from you or talk to you
Right.
before then,
Okay.
okay?
Yep. I will, I'll start making those calls.
Okay.
Yep.
If, I can't imagine if we pick 4 through reading through this, that somehow in checking those references, that something wildly changes in our ranking. It may add an opinion to how we look at the interview, but I wouldn't think we'd be throwing somebody out or throwing one off and moving 2, 3, and 4 up.
It was my, read on this, is that usually, in my world, we usually do the references on the one we would like to go with after the interviews. How do you feel about that? Will we be also showing our hand who we're gonna ask to come to the interviews before the BOS meeting? I'll do either one.
Well, I guess I was posing a question as I was asking that at the end there, that is there any, I don't think, well, let's figure that out on Monday. If somehow something is iffy or something comes up questionable, but they still seem like the best, then maybe a call needs to be made to them to inquire about that specific question. That's what we need to do.
Okay.
Then we can check full references, once they've all been notified.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
When it goes to the BOS on Tuesday night,
Yep.
do they see the order, or do they just be told these are the top 3?
I'm gonna say this is, I'm gonna say here's the top 3. We're proceeding to notify them. We're scheduled interviews for Friday. We like you all in attendance. There'll be, there'll be 4 of them, and I'll just say, I don't have to give you times. But let's figure that out right now. So, is 8:30 the start date, their start time?
I'd suggest maybe that we gather at 8:30, but have their first interview at
Okay.
9.
Right, you're gonna ask the person from, Bedford to be here at 9 and then, I mean, sometimes it does come down to that, sometimes it's preference, sometimes it's just the convenience, it's a courtesy to get everyone here, so.
Mm-hmm.
9:45. And it's not like these are, private interviews and we're ushering people in or out, I mean, the public's gonna be sitting there, they're gonna be sitting there.
Right.
So we'll go right through till 12:45, 1 o'clock with the interviews,
If we get 4.
if we get 4.
The first one's at 9, second one's at 10, third one's at 11.
Yep.
17.
We can order lunch if we need to.
So, okay, first question, if it's 3, it's a little more staggered out, there's a little more time. If it's 4, it's a little more condensed and we're moving through it.
Yep.
And they all could be sitting here for all of them and just keep rotating as we go through this. I don't know, it's kind of weird to have a discussion if they're all sitting here and you're discussing them as the interview, but it is an open process, so.
Sorry, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is that how it normally works, so that you would, or would you?
Yeah. Could you go into
discuss.
qualifications and,
That's my one question to the Inspector General,
Yeah.
since it just seems that, I don't know, that's the answer.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense to me, that
Yeah.
we would
It's
have.
an easy answer in the private world, do with anything you want.
Right.
That discussion before the interviews might thin the herd. Oh, okay, never mind.
And then they're gonna be watching this video later afterwards anyways,
Yeah.
because we'll have to have a video.
Well, if we go into executive session, we don't.
The other candidates will sit in during each interview, because, I mean, I think that gives an unfair advantage to the people that go last, because they know the interview questions.
Right,
They've been
right.
sitting there for 3 hours preparing.
That's what we were
for-
trying to navigate through last meeting, and we
Yeah.
just have to find out if we can do that.
Right.
yeah.
Those are the questions, just
Yes.
exactly the interview.
DSP is just the person that's being interviewed that is in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, you know, I don't know if you've seen really clear.
yeah,
I mean,
but,
the DSP sitting around the table and that one guy, well, you've probably been there, so you're making the presentation.
Yeah, and they control it, but if,
Yeah.
when they do the selection process,
We'll get that
again,
answer for you, right?
it's their job, they do
Right.
this daily, or almost daily or weekly.
Mhm.
It's a slam dunk of how they go about
Right.
ranking them and selecting them, and, that moves pretty quickly, and I've sat through a couple of them, and sometimes it's like lightning, and sometimes it's a little bit more of a discussion. I just wanna ask that question, and I
Yeah.
wanna make sure that we're just above board,
Well,
because I don't
absolutely.
wanna get hung up with some kinda
Yep.
person who's pissed off, and all of a sudden we're distracted. We've been
Mhm.
distracted by pissed off people the whole process.
So if the meeting
I'll
on,
get you that answer in a minute.
Okay.
And I'll write to, Design John Sabsabone,
Yeah.
because he'll tell me what they do, when he does his interviews.
so
Work on that now.
we do all the interviews on Friday,
Yep,
right,
and then after that, we have a discussion as to, again, rank them?
yes, and I think what we'll
And what's the
have-
difference between that and the next meeting on Monday then, on the calendar, because I thought that's what that was for.
I think we were gonna reconvene after we had that initial discussion right after.
Yes, I think we should make the decision after the interviews,
That Friday.
that Friday. Then the next step is, okay, we meet on Monday, the next step is, okay, we have an OPM that we've recommended. Tracy should be in that meeting, and we should say, okay, we run our course for the OPM. You have to negotiate with the OPM. Part of, I guess intentionally, is we didn't publish a fee price in here. If this was an $11 million public safety complex, we would have spent some time figuring out the percentages, and we would have said, okay, your fee is 2.5%, which is a normal fee, or it's a little more difficult job, and so we're gonna publish a fee of 3%. And then that would have been the baseline of which they would have negotiated against. Because we're combining projects, because we're a little small, tight on fee, didn't feel like putting it out there and then having somebody weigh that against the complexity of the project would have been detrimental to the people who are just interested in it. So, we need to get Tracy engaged. I think Tracy needs to come up to speed and take the essence of what we put in the proposal. And it may take her, it's like a chicken and egg, you may just have to ask for a proposal from the OPM and get the proposal and then vet that out and figure where the baseline is.
Yeah.
So,
Does that make sense?
a little bit, to me, but, on Tuesday night for the, BOS meeting,
Yep.
the only expectation is we're going to be saying, we've got it down to 3 candidates for them to consider.
Yep.
They're going to make a decision, and then he's going, with the decision they make, then he's gonna go do the references, is that what I'm hearing?
No,
The
no,
selectmen
no.
have no decision
No,
in
this
this,
is
it's
just-
just a
I'm
report.
informing the selectmen that the committee has narrowed it down to 3.
Who makes the final decision?
the-
Yeah, who makes the
We
final?
do.
We do.
We do.
Okay, all right,
And we present recommendation. that
Right,
We decided this.
Right.
but who makes, okay, so this is where I'm losing a little bit.
Tracy is the purchasing agent for the town.
Right, she's chief procurement.
So after the interviews, we have we rank them. And we tell Tracy, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this order. And we'll tell the selectmen at that time, hopefully they're at the interview, and Tracy will then run the negotiation with that number one person. If we can work out a deal with them and it seems like they got the right scope and they've got the right fee, and then I think she'll ask the board of selectmen for their understanding that this is how we're moving forward.
That's where I was losing it, the number one person that's going into Tracy's office, that's coming from
From us.
From us.
Yeah.
Right, that's
No,
where,
the
that's where my
top-
wheels popped up.
The
on
top
that.
three are, it's not one and done,
Right.
it's a pecking order, it's a
Right.
list of, we're ranking them.
Right. No, I
Because
understand
for
all
some
that,
reason,
yeah.
the first guy comes in and says, well, I want 2 million to do it, or I'm not doing it, and we say, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We got number two,
Right,
and we go to number two,
Mhm. Okay.
that's the way it works.
All right.
They give you an out, just, we're selecting on qualifications, so you get the best person for the job, this is what the state wants. If everyone was to select on fee, in this town, we'd get the least qualified person.
Sure.
We get a guy with a backhoe showing up saying, I can do it. And to come down to the smallest fee, and we'd select them, and then you know where we'd be. So, qualifications, experience.
I get your answer, one at a time. You only interview one candidate at a time, all the rest are not in the room.
Okay, so
He
that
said,
gives-
but John said it's only fair that way, for all the
So
things we
so
talked
then
about.
is this then a public meeting?
I would assume so,
So you
but,
probably wanna schedule the candidates then?
well, that's what we're gonna do.
Yes.
We're gonna-
Obviously, the public can sit in, but the candidates, the other candidates have to sit
Stay
outside.
outside.
Well,
Sure.
I guess
Sorry,
I
watching it on the
want
phone.
clarification on that, is it a public meeting?
Well, that's what I'm saying, they're sitting down the hall
Yeah,
watching
posted
something.
public.
Posted public meeting, can it be done in executive session again, since you are evaluating? Again, I keep going back to the DSP, and I understand his circumstances a little different, but that is, the public is not part of that meeting.
Well, I think if the public's sitting in, while we have our discussion, we interview the candidate, they leave the room, we have a 15-minute discussion on the interview. The public can sit in on that, there shouldn't be an issue with that, they don't participate, they can sit and watch. And
Yeah,
then you invite the next candidate in.
yeah.
That's the way I look
I
at
just
it.
reached out to John, and say, is it a public meeting or an executive
Yeah,
session?
okay.
Because again, he
Thank
sits
you.
in on those, so
Yeah.
he'll know
Yeah,
the
no, that's- Yeah.
dynamic of it all.
And this, we're getting videotaped, but I don't think it's live, so the other candidates can't be, like Otto said, sitting in the, watching it on their phone,
Well,
so.
Right, but if it is an
Public.
executive session, we wouldn't be.
Right.
Right, correct.
So, the interview, they do it, we say thank you, they leave, and we say, okay, does everybody have an understanding? And we say, yeah, and, okay, did they say 5 years or 4 years? And we say, well, I heard 5, yeah.
Why can't we videotape the interviews and just have to take?
And John just said they do it both ways, they're mostly done public.
I mean, just
Well,
because
it's-
you just have the tape available, why, it doesn't have to go on,
We're making the decision on somebody that we've gotta live with, it's taken
Sure.
how long to get to this point? And for all those people that come out of the woodwork, I'd rather have it as open as possible,
Yeah.
and.
No, understood. That's, yeah.
So we can do either way, and those are the reasons.
Yeah, so it'd be better to, and it would be focused and be less distraction if we have just the public, I don't know, maybe no one shows up anyway.
You're asking the whole board of selectmen to sit here while we interview, so they,
I would, and.
yeah, they might as well sit while we discuss each candidate too.
If there's anybody else in town that we have, or think should have an interest in it, we should invite them. Do it.
Well, the guy I'm talking to lives in Byfield for design technique, and he said, any other questions, feel free to ask. So he can do that independently, and he knows all these guys. So I may reach out to him and get some feedback. So that'd be good.
Sure.
So it's independent. work.
So,
And Tracy's been through the process too, we can also talk to her about how
Right,
she's.
yes.
so the last piece that's unanswered is the executive discussion, the executive session discussion after the interview. How do we score them, rank them, and actually decide? We don't have, but we could easily have, I think I'm looking at this, and this is the criteria in the interview that I wanna base it on.
And we did have one section of evaluation criteria for the interviews in here, which is on page 16. But just kind of, just a sample.
So with that, parentheses across the top. Let's list the 4 people down here. Columns, and then people can add across, and it's a simple grid to keep track of on one piece of paper. Does that make sense? So if we cut this, give it the points for slots, and then people could put numbers, and we can come up with a total at the end, and it gives us some values for the recommendation. All right, so we have a similar form in which to rank the interview as you sit in the interview, and you take notes on that and adjust the number, and then you can rank them at the end.
Those, the scoring grids while you're doing the interviews. The very first person in, I'm always, oh, great. And then 2 or 3 and you're like, oh, that first person wasn't as great, you scratch and stuff.
Yeah, it's a moving,
Exactly.
adjustable, dynamic that happens. All right, so. Do we have any questions or thoughts or?
So just to, so you've got the seven here, you've got the scoring matrix, you've got 7 copies of the scoring sheet, plus a couple of extras, there are 2 more. I will email to you. I've given you the meat of the qualifications. I didn't give you the section with forms and the contract. The required forms are listed in the table of contents, so you can check off whether they're there or not. So hopefully that's enough to
Got some homework this week.
get some information.
Highlighters, tabs, whatever it takes, mark them up. It's not like we gotta give these back, these are your copies, so do whatever you need to do to go through them. And it does, make notes and circle right where you're doing it if you got a question, because it's not like taking, we wanna make this as simple and as easy as possible.
And I've got the originals, some of them had originals marked on them, so I've got the original where they did that, plus the CDs or flash drives down in my office.
Okay. These are publicly available for inspection here at Town Hall. There's some extra copies, but people can't take them home or take them out of offices. We don't have 100 of them, but if anybody wanted to view them or somehow somebody asks you about them, hey, come on down and take a look at them.
Yeah.
These are public record. Try to get that front cover, but.
The power on this should be back up by 8:15.
Fix a flat tire for me too.
Oh my God.
My wife texted that, what'd they do, send out an email blast? Okay. Good, thanks.
I'll give you the link to Angie's list for the tire.
Triple A.
Well, I was about to change it this morning, and then you get to the friggin' lug nuts, and I'm looking, and the wrenches, I'm looking, I'm like, those are plastic. So I had to search the whole car for this tiny little
Thing
pair
that
of
pulls the
tweezers
cover,
that pops on and pulls them off. And I'm like, okay, good. It's that one little, my wife looks out on the side of the road like, can't anybody change the tire? I mean, the wrench doesn't fit. And he listened to her on the phone like, no, the wrench fits on the, no, it doesn't fit. I'm like, no, it does. Yeah.
I had that with the tractor yesterday, and all of a sudden it's going backwards by itself. I said, turn it off, put on the safety brake, walk away. It was the easiest way to handle it. I've got a high-low speed thing, and the height, it's a trip out, you get to neutral, but you don't know. I said, I asked her, is it in neutral? No, it's in gear.
Yeah.
Right, just leave it. Just leave it. Carry the water, the bucket up the hill.
Is there any job?
Okay, so Martin, for recap, we've gone over, scoring sheets, everyone's got the scoring matrix criteria.
Right, which is also in the proposal, just because we were dealing with some boxes, there was a little language that was removed, it wasn't substantive, but if, you can,
You want the full
if you
language.
want the full language, yeah, but it's there.
Everyone's gonna review these, you're gonna write a separate scorecard for each one. I think it would be helpful if we just, did everyone get the matrix? Everyone been copied on that?
I got it, yeah.
John got it, I don't think it's going out, I
Okay.
listed it, to everything, but I can send that out as well.
Is that the list of everybody that,
Well, let's just do this, right now, if you take your, we can do this in alphabetical order.
And it's listed in the memo here.
Okay, so so on the first one, vertex is number one,
okay,
and just go down in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it would be helpful if you had a separate sheet of paper and you wrote 1 through 7, and you just put your score next to it.
Right.
You hand that sheet in to Martha, Martha can quickly tabulate it, it'll be a blind sort of tabulation, and then we'll have the horse race semi-set, and we can begin our discussion. And then Martha doesn't have to flip through 100 pieces of paper while we all stare at her.
I appreciate it.
Taking fun out of everything.
And we're handing these in Monday night.
Yes,
We're,
we're meeting here at 7 on Monday.
right,
7 AM or PM?
PM.
PM.
Oh,
7 p.m.
then I can make the
thank
meeting.
God.
Yes, 7 p.m. So you come in, you have all your evaluation sheets filled out, you have one separate piece of paper, 1 through 7, with just the total number next to it.
Right.
Hand that total number into Martha, she'll do a quick tabulation, we'll get started.
So you just want the number, you don't need the name?
No.
Okay, so
1 and like 36.
36.
1, 2, and 35, and that will make it easy for Martha
Yeah.
just to quickly add it up.
Mhm.
All right?
Or you can email it to her ahead of time to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, yeah. Second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Fun. Thank you for your service. Nice to get 7.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I've been there for a while, I've seen the
Yeah.